But yeah. Okay, well, folks, welcome to the season finale of Tim Talk Season 1. We're here with Don Khouri, and Don's going to be helping us understand a lot about productivity, about coaching in general, and delegation, leadership, and a lot of good stuff like that, right?
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to a productive conversation, Tim.
I agree. Okay, good, perfect. So, Don, let's start with how you really kind of got your, where you cut your teeth in the business, I guess, where you started off. We've talked a lot over the last week about where you got started with Fidelity.
Yes.
And if you could talk a little bit about your past, where you started your career, and kind of how you segued into coaching and the direction that I believe your wife largely inspired to, a certain direction that your career took, as people influence us in all sorts of unpredictable ways.
Yes. So my background's in software development. You could say I'm a computer geek. And I worked for Fidelity for 21 years, leading global software development teams from Bangalore to Boston and Paris to Dallas. And my job was to get people to work together across cultures, across time zones, across continents, to deliver software on time and on budget.
Okay, so how did you have, so when you had to do work globally, when you talk about cross culture, did you travel a lot, or did you have a background, or did you just kind of figure it out as you went along?
So a little of both. I mean, we certainly traveled. I've been to India. I've met with the teams in Paris and Ireland and the US, of course. So, and we were fortunate enough to have some cultural training that went along with it as well. Like in the Indian culture, they're very respectful of authority and teachers. And so they won't challenge you as much. And they may even be a little hesitant to bring bad news.
Right.
So you've got to work with that. In Paris, the French culture was very interesting, because one of the things I learned there was in France, the relationship is the goal and the work is the tool.
Okay.
In the US, the work is the goal and the relationship is the tool.
I'm trying to think how that works the other way around. How does that work where?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, obviously, you got to be focused on relationships here to get things done.
Sure.
But the overriding theme was we may be more focused on the end goal and the work.
Right, the final product, right? So we care more, and I'm very much oriented that way.
Yeah.
Whereas the way I'm thinking about it, and I'm imagining I'm probably wrong about this, so correct me here. I'm thinking that, I'm picturing sweetheart relationships in France. If you know this person, you're going to get the job regardless if you do a good job or not. Is that the case, or am I wrong?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe there's that part of the relationship. But here's a little anecdote to explain that. So my first day there, I'm facilitating a session on software development and designing our system. And we're getting close to lunchtime. And I did what I would usually do in the US, which is I said, okay, we have a couple options, guys. We can work through lunch and bang this out and continue, or we can take a break and then come back and reevaluate the afternoon session. And my colleagues are like, no, Don, we don't skip lunch in France. That is not an option.
Okay. That's
because that's where they're building their relationship.
Yep.
Maybe a 30-minute afternoon coffee break, which is all about the relationship.
Yeah.
So those sorts of
And in
things.
India, I've heard there's a lot of screaming in those relationships. Is that true? A lot of heavy language to make sure people are in line, from leadership to the
again, there's that respect of authority. So authority will come out. I didn't necessarily observe that kind of temper or screaming to get things done. But it was very effective. It was effective to what we would describe as follow the sun, right? When it's daylight here, it's nighttime in India. When it's daylight there. So you've got development teams working essentially around the clock to deliver software. Very effective.
That makes sense. Okay, great. So how does this turn into coaching?
Yeah, so in 2002, the vice chairman of Fidelity, Bob Reynolds at the time, some people may recognize that name. He's CEO of Putnam Investments now. he was speaking to a group of senior leaders, and he said, I see it as a failure of our company when we have to hire leaders from outside. So a very clear message to all of us in the room: it's your job to develop the next generation of leaders.
Sure.
So that's a clear call to action. The vice chairman is asking. I took it pretty seriously and learned as much as I could about developing leaders and effective communication and building high-performing teams. And the more I did that type of work, the more I enjoyed it just as much as I did developing software.
Mm-hmm.
So I left the corporate world in 2008. And around the same time, my wife came to me and asked if I could help with her business. And as you kind of indicated, I'm married to a dentist.
Yep.
And so I said, all right, well, let's see what I can do. I'll do what I know how to do, which is get teams to communicate effectively, build processes, build a high-performing team. And we did that in the first year. We grew 30%.
Yep.
And so as a result, coaching dentists and helping them grow has become a big part of my business. In addition to coaching, which was my initial goal, was to coach technology leaders. And I still do that. And I coach senior level executives on being more productive. So executives being more productive, entrepreneurs being more profitable. It's a way to think about it.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, it's productivity is something that is talked about so much. And I know that's a big part of what you do, helping folks become more productive.
Yeah.
Before we get started on what you think people should know, what are the myths? Like, I'm sure you've heard of 1,000 of these productivity landscapes out there that different people have put out.
Sure.
And I'm sure some of them you probably scoff at and just like, that's not really very helpful. That's not going to actually create long-term returns. Are there any productivity pieces that you typically see out there that you would urge people to be wary of?
Yeah. So two things come to mind. One is most of the productivity literature out there, and there's a lot. I have a whole bookshelf just of productivity books.
I don't think we have to do much to establish your credentials. You have, the audience can't see it, but there's diplomas and certificates all over this wall. You certainly have distinguished yourself as a speaking from a place of authority with this, which is.
Hey, look, we're most fulfilled as humans, I think, when we learn and grow. And that's a big value of mine, is learning and growing. And so I'm always a student.
Yeah.
I'm as much a student of productivity and this stuff as anything else. I've read all the books. So one common thing is in the productivity literature is how to organize the stuff that you have in front of you. And I took a kind of a step back from that and answered the question, well, what do the most productive people do? And we can call them knowledge workers, right? We work with knowledge more than our hands. A dentist, if you think about it, works with both. They're working with their knowledge and their hands. How do they answer the question when they get a request for their time?
Okay.
How do they approach that? And so it's a bigger picture view of where do you really want to spend your time? I call it, like, instead of being busy, what if we were to say we're purposely productive? And so what does that mean? First of all, it has kind of a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Purposely.
It's got a little
alliteration. Exactly. So it means you're in control. You're crystal clear on your goals. You're working on your most important goals. And you're making conscious decisions about how you're investing your time. And think about it as investing, just like you would invest your dollars. You can argue time is even more important than money.
And this makes a lot of sense. And it seems like this should be how we naturally are. So I imagine if you've dedicated your career to this, you've found that that's not always the case, that people are dedicating parts of their schedule to things that aren't actually what they should be prioritizing, even to themselves.
Absolutely. They will.
Why do people do that?
That's a great question. And that'd be maybe a whole nother lens of research.
The psychology always interests me.
But here's maybe the quick view is where there's a lot. We were actually just talking about distractions, and there's billions dollars spent on advertising to get your attention, to do something different or feel something different or buy something.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is kind of shift that around and have our own advertisement to ourselves on a regular basis on what is most important, what should we focus on. So I would say that's probably the easy answer is people get distracted, and it's easy to get distracted.
Right. I mean, I think this even works in your personal life too. Like I might have, like, I have a fiance, I have kids. I love doing woodworking projects at my house and stuff like that. And then I'll get frustrated because, unlike your house, my house will get very messy. And I'll say, well, but I want to do this with my kids, or I want to go and do these fun things. And then my woodworking project falls behind. And, taking the moment to actually just be able to tell everybody, I'm not coming out. I'm just focusing on getting this done. I need this done for my house. And these are the things that I think a lot of people have trouble with, not only just taking a moment to think and process that, but also people don't want to disappoint other people. There's also social aspects. And I guess in work, sometimes it's top down, or even with your colleagues, there's a lot of influences there.
Well, you hit a key thing there, right? Because originally the book was titled When to Say No, because that's really the skill we have to master, is saying no. But guess what? You just said it. People don't like to say no. They equate more pain of saying no today than the potential pain of too much to do later.
Okay.
So we kind of just flip that on its head. And if we can answer the question when to say yes, then we can answer the question. Then we know when to say no.
And that might be a more comfortable venue or direction to navigate that process. Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't realize that much thought went into it. Well, I'm sure a lot of thought goes into naming the book. Okay, so let's talk about how, like, is there a typical process that you have when you're coaching folks, in whether they're dentists or otherwise, to ensure their productivity, what's best for their practice? What is your method? I know there's you have the 7 C's, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I kind of so a couple questions in there. We can hit the 7 C's first, and then maybe come back to the process if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
But I looked at SMART goals, and there are lots of benefits to SMART goals. I've been using SMART goals for a long time, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. But there were a few things missing from that, I thought. So I turned that in with some overlap into the 7 C's of goal setting. So first of all, we want to make sure it's crystal clear. This is somewhat specific.
Yeah.
But being crystal clear, I use the metaphor of the Tom Cruise movie. Is it All the Good Men? All Good Men? What is the name of it?
Oh, I know the one you're talking about, but I'm not a big movie buff. But yeah,
he's questioning the guy on the stand.
Oh yeah, you can't handle the truth. Yep.
Right, you can't handle the truth, and he's like, is that clear? And he says, it's crystal clear.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure the goal is crystal clear. 2 is we want to make sure it's computable or measurable. Okay. So we need to have some way to quantify. Yeah, we actually achieve this.
Are you talking about quantifying like what success means, or are you talking about quantifying what the process is, what's being delegated here, or what's being taken?
Cool. Well, we could talk more about delegation, but specifically here, what success looks like. Okay. So if I want to, it's one thing to say I'm going to lose weight.
Yeah.
It's another thing to say I'm going to lose 10 pounds. That's more specific.
Yeah.
That's
and then even more to say by such and such a date. And so the more specific.
And that's where time comes in.
Okay.
And I've modified time as well. But the third piece, which you don't find in SMART goals at all, is compelling. We need compelling reasons to stay on track, because we are going to get distracted. And if that compelling reason is not there to drive us, maybe your compelling reason for losing weight is you want to look good in the new clothes, or you want to look good in your bathing suit.
Yeah, you have a wedding coming up. You have something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Or maybe it's even deeper than that. Maybe it's you want to live a healthy life and live a longer life. And maybe that's
you just had a big health scare or something. Okay, got it.
The next is being creative. Like, make the goal fun and interesting, and maybe even add a little bit of a stretch to it. So instead of maybe eating a salad every day, you're going to mix it up with different proteins and nuts and seeds.
Sure.
And, that's a simple example, but get creative about your goal.
Okay.
So here's how we change time. So the C on time is calendared, because it's one thing to say, I want to achieve this by June 30th, 2026. It's another thing to actually put it in your calendar, because look, the tool we trust the most is what? It's our calendar.
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Don't you trust it more than your to-do list?
I
or
am so dependent on my calendar more than anything.
Exactly. So let's put our goals in our calendar.
Yep.
And that makes it timely.
Okay.
This is another thing missing from SMART goals is celebrated. So if you want,
Oh, God.
one of my colleagues shared with me, when you want something to grow,
Yep.
pour champagne on it. Celebrate it, right?
And that's something I think. See, I've noticed that as being one of my big faults. So some of those things I think I vary in strengths and weaknesses on. But I look at my life like I have 25 fires.
Yeah.
I need to put them out. And if I put 5 out, I'm just focused on my 20 fires now that I have left. I don't take a moment to appreciate what I've accomplished,
Yeah.
or even if I do it in tandem with somebody else, I don't appreciate them for what they've accomplished. I might respect the hell out of who I'm working with, but being able to take a moment because what's the point? And I feel like that's one of my big faults is taking a moment to actually, appreciate the victories.
Yeah. Hey, the reason this is on the list
Yeah.
is I'm not really good at it either. So I'm with you. I get it. We just have to remind ourselves, and good coaches will help you do that.
Yeah.
Good coaches will help you celebrate.
Okay.
And the 7th C is communicated, because now once we have all those other things in place, if we can communicate it to like a coach or a trust advisor or a partner or someone that we know is going to support us,
Yep.
then we're more accountable to it.
Yeah. And I think it's good too and again, a lot of this will be speaking for myself, but I know I'm far from the only person who goes through this, but I don't know of anyone that actually knows what my job is. So it's kind of lonely in that state. So I can say I had a good day, I had a bad day, but no one's going to truly understand, what I'm going through, my challenges, how rich a victory is. But I imagine with coaching, and I might be wrong with this, that there's even a sense of camaraderie that's like, do you share in the victories of your clients as well?
I start every coaching call with, tell me about your wins since the last time we met.
Yeah.
What were successes and what were wins? And then we have a little celebration. And sometimes I'll even ask, so what are you doing to celebrate that?
Yeah.
Like really celebrate. What's your reward? So it's good to, and celebrate it has like, let's celebrate. First of all, celebrate that the goal is in place, because that's a big milestone. Celebrate the milestones along the way, and then celebrate when you accomplish it.
That sounds great. Yeah, I think that's, and I imagine for things, especially like burnout, that's got to be very helpful. That it's weird because I was talking before, I do eventually want to get into talking about similarities between like psychological counseling to coaching. And there's certain things that we can talk about later on. But I feel like it doesn't matter who you are. There's so much burnout that's going on right now across industries and I think it keeps getting more challenging. I was talking to somebody just a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying that this is not coaching, but a mental health counselor. And she said, just having 1 hour a week to just cry, yell, and just get whatever it is to get like that catharsis out of like the frustrations they have, the trouble of this, that, and the other. And I think even if that's not what you need, maybe because everybody's different, maybe someone like me would be more suited for coaching in the sense that like, I might not be a big crier, but I could certainly use that ability to stop, smell the roses, properly focus on what I need to get done, be able to articulate it, just take a step out and reflect on what's going on instead of just constantly living immersed in that world.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's hey, if you think about it, the best performers in the world have a coach.
Yeah.
Right. Serena Williams doesn't get to Wimbledon and say, I'm the best there is. No one can coach me.
Right.
Who's going to be better? She doubles down on coaching and gets more coaching when that happens, so she can continue to stay at the top.
Sure.
And, the CEO of Google and the best actors and actresses, they all have coaches.
Yeah. So how, if somebody is watching this and thinking about whether or not they could benefit from coaching, and and I hate I'm going to keep making this kind of comparison. I'm so aligned in mental health because of my healthcare background and stuff, and I'm very focused, even in my personal life, on mental health. Like I look at mental health as being trained on how to use a bicycle, like training wheels. I don't know how to ride a bike. I need these training wheels to help me because I don't know how to manage this.
Yeah.
now I feel like I get what I need to get and the training wheels come off.
Hmm.
I can ride by myself. I don't need help. I'm cruising. I have a new issue that's come into my life, a trauma, a new business challenge, a growth situation, or whatever. I need to get these training wheels back on again. Like like I look at, and this is really much more mental health. I'm very inexperienced when it comes to coaching,
Hmm.
but in mental health, I feel like it's not something that should ever be considered like a crutch. It should typically be something that's looking to, for my kids. Okay, this is what I'm dealing with at 8. Oh crap! Now I'm in middle school. I've got puberty. We've got more complex issues. We need to make sure that the counseling is being managed. This is how your mental health conditions present here. In coaching, is it typically because what you're saying is that all these people in positions of power, they have coaches.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
it sounds like what you're saying is that that's kind of like an ongoing, like a continuous relationship. It doesn't really end. It's something that gives these people things always, they can bounce ideas off of you. They can have like you become a trusted advisor really with them.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, I've been coaching now for 15 plus years, and I have clients that have been with me that long because we're
Hmm.
moving the ball and creating the next thing. And in terms of those conversations, I always say when I'm bringing on a client, I expect you to have a breakthrough in every one of our coaching conversations. Now,
Wow.
sometimes that's a small breakthrough, sometimes it's a bigger breakthrough, and sometimes the breakthrough happens in between calls because they're reflecting or they're doing
Yeah.
some homework and reflecting on what we talked about. So it's thinking about this is actually interesting because I had a client this morning say, Don, I came into this call thinking I'm going to have this conversation with AI,
Hmm.
and why do I really need a coach? I'm just going to use AI to get what I want. And
Right.
she says, I'm pleasantly surprised that we actually went way beyond where probably AI, because we've been working together for, I don't know, about a year or so.
Okay.
And so I know the business and I know where she fits into that and I know her struggles and I know, so it was really interesting. And I have this philosophy on AI too, which is a lot of people believe that AI will replace people.
I think it's a good concern to have. I think people
Yeah,
should be wary of that.
exactly. And it's probably true in some cases. But I think the bigger topic is people who use AI
Hmm.
will replace people. So it's like you gotta
I
you
think
gotta
that's
engage it, you gotta adopt
I
it.
think it's fair, and I think like everything else, and I was talking, and this is going to be a good segue into that whole like little what's his name, Tony Robbins or whatever that I was going to say, like the blind following.
Yeah.
So let's get into this for a second here. So I have always thought one of the more dangerous pieces of humanity is the tribalism. People are like, I'm a Democrat, I hate all Republicans. I'm
Mhm,
a
mhm.
Red Sox fans. I'm going to puke if I see a Yankees fan. Like you you identify yourself as something, and then everything outside of that becomes abhorrent. You see it in religion, you see it
Yeah.
in a lot of aspects of humanity. So I think my concern, and AI is very similar. AI is very um, cultivating to the person. It affirms a lot of things that the person's saying, regardless if what the person's saying is dangerous or not. There's already been many accounts of people, having concerns that some people may have taken their lives because of it.
Yeah, I've
That
seen that.
people
Yeah.
have just gone down bad paths because it's usually like, that's a great idea. Let me help you with that.
Mhm.
And they think that they have a great idea now, but that's how
Yeah.
it's at least ChatGPT anyway. That's how that's pushing back towards everybody, is they're feeding you back what you're saying in a positive light, and they're constructive. There's lots of great information there. But I think with anyone that you like attach yourself to, the you have to make sure that you don't have this belief that this person is the be all end all. Humans are extremely fallible, extremely
Sure,
corruptible, and
sure.
I think that there has to always be something in the back of the head about trust and understanding, and not just blind following. Like using it, like when you have a coach, it shouldn't just be, oh, whatever my coach says I'm going to do. It should be more of like a collaboration.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they said this. I don't really buy into that. These things were great ideas, or they might be seeds and they germinate a few days later, like you were saying, and can turn into these epiphanies.
Well, let's talk about how coaching actually works, because coaching is not advice.
Okay.
Coaching is because as a coach, we believe that the client has the best answer. And it's our role as a coach to help bring that out.
Okay.
And because think about it, they're going to have the context and they know their team and their culture and their environment and their situation better than even working long term.
Sure.
Better than I'm going to know. Yeah, I can connect dots and piece those together. So very rarely, once in a while, you bring in your experience with permission as a coach, but rarely are we saying, okay, try this or do this.
Yeah.
It's more building on using listening skills and curiosity, which I'll link that back to the tribal thing in a second, and figuring out, helping the person figure out what they need to do, even more importantly, who they need to be to deal with this challenge.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
But yeah, if you know you find something that you disagree with, and maybe like your emotions are really getting the best of you, and you disagree with someone on politics or religion or sports or whatever it is.
Yep.
Just come from a place of curiosity.
Right.
And instead of seeing that as wrong, it's like, well, what makes you believe that, or what is it? What supports? What beliefs do you have that support that? Just learn more about it. And we were talking a little bit about this at lunch last week when we said it'd be nice for us to be able to have intelligent conversations, because we're all one team. Let's all work together to have intelligent conversations about getting where we want to go.
Yeah, seems like a very much a no-brainer, what you just said, and it's probably actually extremely controversial in today's environment, because things are everybody's like on fire before they even say the first word in a conversation, and you have to be very careful, and this part goes towards your communication too. I mean, you have to be very deliberate in what you say. I feel like it's very important to make sure you watch what you're talking about. I mean, I make mistakes. I'm very loose with my tongue. I am, and like, you know, it gets me into trouble all the time, because I don't often come from I'm sure I'm tribal in certain ways, but I often come from, like, I'm typically like very agnostic with the way I look at things. Like, you know, I'm not really vested in this, especially with single people. I've never met anybody that I didn't have disagreements with. I mean, and I don't want to. I think that would be boring. I mean, imagine if there were 1,000 me's out there. I'm sure my audience would love that.
Of course they would. Of course they would.
Very likely.
So yeah, communication. To be an effective communicator, I think you also need to master your emotions. And Daniel Goleman wrote a great book 20-something years ago called Emotional Intelligence.
Okay.
And what that essentially means is just understanding your own emotions first, understanding the emotions of the people that you're communicating with, and then based on that information, taking the appropriate action. Yeah. And isn't that really the base of like all of our successes or failures in life come from managing our emotions? You can't manage your physical body if you can't manage your emotions. You can't manage your finances if you can't manage your emotions. Yeah. You can't manage your career if you can't manage your emotions, et cetera. So I think it comes down to that.
I find the managing my emotions to be a pretty simple task personally, but I think understanding other people's emotions, I struggle mightily with that. And so sometimes I'll bring in, like, my office is filled with women, and I've managed like about 80 to 90% of my staff is typically women. Healthcare admins, it's very common.
Yes.
But so sometimes I'll have somebody in to kind of, this is what I'm planning on saying, right? And plus, I'm coming from a place of being an employer versus an employee. When's the last time I was an employee? 30 years ago? So I don't understand where they're coming from in certain ways. So I think sometimes it's helpful if you have a confidant that you can talk to about this. Like, okay, you're going to be coming from a similar perspective. How is this going to come off? What is your interpretation? And it's sometimes hard to, I struggle with empathy and understanding the room and how to best approach things. I usually go very direct, but sometimes it has a sledgehammer effect. You know, where tact is probably better off. So, I mean, I guess that can kind of get a little bit into delegation too. So I know this is another expertise of yours as well, right?
I did write, there is a chapter about delegation. So I talk about that, and it is one of the key successes that and the key points that the most productive people use is delegation. Yeah.
And so what would be a good, a snippet from that chapter that you think would be useful? for the folks that are watching? Like, what's
Well, I learned in the research I did, and I interviewed C-level executives around the country and asked them how they evaluated requests for their time. Lots of sub questions, but that was the kind of the core question. And about delegation, I learned two important things. One that's really obvious that you're going to understand, and the other that it was a little bit of a surprise for me, but now has become so obvious.
Okay.
The first one is people delegate to get the work off their plate so they can focus on more appropriate activities for their role.
Yep.
It makes perfect sense,
Yep,
right? We all
absolutely.
know that. That's the obvious one. The second one, which is a big breakthrough or aha, is they delegate to make it a growth opportunity for someone else. So they look at that interaction as a way for them to learn and build that capability, then that's another great purpose of delegating.
Yeah.
And I just have a simple 5-step process. Like, first of all, what does an outstanding result look like? Let's be really clear. You know, when you're putting a puzzle together, don't you have the picture of the puzzle?
Yeah.
At the, you know what you're working towards.
Right.
So
right.
let's get really clear on what an outstanding result looks like. And then, why is this task or job or project important?
Mhm.
That kind of gets back to the compelling reason.
Sure.
Like, let's really understand the why behind it. And then, how will you, as the leader, support this person in being successful?
Got it. Okay.
Step 4, which is one of my favorite coaching questions, is how would you like to be held accountable for this? So now you're empowering that person.
Mhm.
We're not micromanaging anymore. We're not checking in 6 times a day to see where it is.
Sure.
We're asking them how they would like to be held accountable. And then the fifth one, which ties back to that growth and learning opportunity, is what's in it for them. If you build this skill, then that opens you up to bigger opportunities or whatever.
Yeah, I really like that process. I think the part of putting it on them, how to be accountable, is a really good twist too, because I think it puts skin in the game for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not being told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just purely top down. It's kind of like they'll feel like they're somewhat part of the process, collaborating with their boss or whoever it is that's creating this. And I think that's probably a really good technique for buy-in. I mean, I typically, when I'm thinking about promoting somebody, I usually start providing them with new tasks without explaining that to them. Because if someone's going to come up short, let's say someone performs poorly or something like that, I do a test of whether it's trust, a new duty, or something like that, and they do poorly. And if they're not aware that I'm testing them for something, then there's no situation where they're putting their tail between their legs, going back, potentially just thinking that they failed at something terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. I mean, I love my people. I like you. If you're perfectly fine at doing this job, and I think maybe you're suited for something, but it doesn't turn out to be successful, I don't want there to be a lot of conflict there or embarrassment with colleagues. So but that process is very different than what I do. But I think it's a great idea, especially maybe it's something that I could implement too after it looks like this person's getting good tread, going in a good direction. Then bring them in and be like, here's why I'm doing this. Here's why I've given you these duties, because I think that you have the potential for this. Let's frame what we think it is and then work together with the person on it.
Yeah, the other building on that, the other thing we need to adapt to as leaders is there's when you're delegating something, there's the task and the person. So the person may be like a star performer and has been working for you for many years and knows a lot about the business and what to do, but you're throwing like a brand new task at them, a brand new project that they know nothing about. Now we need a little bit more support and a little bit more encouragement and direction than you would giving that same person something that they've been doing, like very little oversight, very little support.
Yeah,
they can just run with it. Right? So if you keep that in mind too, it kind of helps with the
right.
piece.
That makes a lot of sense. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what other focuses do you have in the book? So leadership, right? That's another big piece of yours.
Well, leadership, this is the audience for this book really initially was leaders.
Okay.
In fact, it's interesting because the publisher kind of pushed me to widen it a bit, right? We originally started with executives.
Okay.
And then we said, all right, well, maybe we can address this more towards just leaders in general, like entry-level managers, all the way up to executives. And then I kind of wrote it, because really, this is something I learned from my book coach too. You don't write a book about something,
Mhm.
you write a book for someone. So you're
Okay.
always keeping the reader in mind. So it's
Yep.
important to have that. But ultimately, we said really anyone that feels like they have too much to do
Mhm.
and not enough time, that's the audience for the book.
I mean, who doesn't fall into that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty wide. I think it's pretty wide.
That's great. I
But,
didn't even think about that too. Coaches have coaches because, of
yeah.
course, you respect the field. You know that you've never written a book before.
Yeah.
Let's get ourselves a coach. That's great too.
But if you think about great leaders take care of the people around them.
Yeah.
They're very clear. I love Simon Sinek's. Simon Sinek has a story about that, about this fighter in was it World War II? No, in the time of like Afghanistan and that, maybe the early 90s or something. And he's putting his life on the line to protect ground troops. He's flying a fighter plane of some kind that drops bombs to protect. And he talks about this in his book, Leaders Eat Last. And, the question to him is, well, why are you risking your own life to protect all these other people, right? You're doing that. And his answer is because they would do the same for me. And it says a lot about leadership, which is, you just take care of the people around you.
Right.
I think leaders also set a great vision. And people will follow a leader with a strong vision and a clear vision about where you're taking them. I think leaders also have charisma, which is just about bringing energy and excitement to the work and the job. And, there is no play, there is no work. It's just living.
Right.
Right. So bring some energy
Yep.
to what you do. That's what charisma is really. And also, I think leaders make great and quick decisions. And I actually hesitant on great because leaders also make a lot of bad decisions.
Right.
You got to make decisions, right? Because
Yeah.
you just don't know what's around the corner until you get to the corner.
It's tough. And I think that can probably be separated depending on, like, I'm looking at the C-suite right now. I think like in a CEO position, you're 1,000% right. I think depending on your position, sometimes you don't have as many immediate moves that you have to make. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think typically like a COO, a CEO, definitely they face, like, I feel like being able to have more of a chaotic mindset like I have has really assisted me. Like there are times where I wish I could be far more organized and set up in certain ways, but I don't know that would lend well to the ability to put out multiple fires at the same time. Okay, I have to do this. I have a meeting in 10 minutes, and now this person's coming in and crying into my office about God knows what. And I'm cool as a cucumber in those situations. I feel very comfortable within chaos. And I think that for my position anyway, that's a necessity. It's not something I learned. It's just, I think you just I imagine you have it or you don't. Like with sales, I could learn that, but because sales, I was terrible. When I first got into sales, I embarrassed the hell out of myself. I could do a whole show about that. Like how embarrassing I was, basically trying to sell other companies instead of myself. But I feel like that's something that's learned, where there are certain things like, I don't know, do you think charisma is something that's typically more innate, or is that something that people can train themselves to?
I had this question. I was presenting about teamwork and high performing teams, and someone asked me that exact question. Were you born with this charisma, or did it just or did you learn it? And it's definitely a learned skill. It just comes back. It's not a natural thing for me. Like for my wife, you met her, natural for her.
Yeah.
For me, it's learned. It's about bringing that energy. That's how I think about charisma. The same about leadership, and there's lots of literature on this. Leadership is a learned skill. It's not leaders are not born.
Okay.
They're made.
Okay.
And I bet, as you talk about that skill of being calm in a crisis, that there's some experiences that led to that. Maybe some positive experiences that reinforced who you needed to be in those situations.
Yep.
And maybe some negative experiences that reinforced what not to do in those situations.
Yeah, you're probably right. I haven't really delved into it. I mean, I'm a kind of an Army brat too, so that I'm sure it's probably from a lot of different personal experiences originally that get you to where you are. But But a lot of the sales was definitely, oh man, I was so embarrassed. I was so inept with that. I remember I had like a neighbor of mine who's like a real estate guy. I took him out to lunch and I was like, I'm sucking at this. And I'm talking about rev cycle management. So he doesn't know what the hell that is.
Sure.
So I take him out and then I talked to him maybe about 2 minutes about what I do. He's like, so basically what your line would be something like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this guy didn't know what I did 2 minutes ago. And he can sell my company that I've lived since I was like 9, my mother started the rev cycle company. And so I'm second generation running this thing. And I can't describe it as well as that's when I knew like this is something that's something learned, because once you know how to sell, then you can sell. Like, how do you convey that information?
So what's your big learning point around that? What did you learn that makes you a better salesperson today then?
I think in that conversation, all I learned was that sales is a skill. And that was huge for me because I felt very incompetent at that time. Like, I had gone on a couple calls, I did terribly. And I'm like, how am I supposed to run this company? So I had a lot of confidence issues at that time. But I think I'll tell you what I think fights all this stuff, whether it's charisma, leadership, or sales, or all of these things, is passion.
Yeah.
Like if you care about what you're doing, like you obviously very much do, you would never be in the position you are if you weren't passionate about what you did. You wouldn't have 5,000 diplomas and certificates
Maybe
on the wall.
Maybe a little exaggeration, but yeah.
But the thing is that when people, and I don't care who you are, like even if you are super introverted or whatnot, like if you are talking about something that you care about, I don't care if it's your kids or a hobby that you do or whatever, you're going to be able to captivate people who don't even care about it. That's why, like with this, I like sometimes getting feedback from people who are not in the healthcare industry. Like, how do you like this Tim Talk show? And what do you get from it? Because if someone's captivated that has no skin in the game, then I feel like the communication part must be going well. There must be something there. Maybe we have something here, type of a thing. Those are the thoughts that go through my head when that happens. And I think passion is really what fuels a lot. I mean, even just for work, if you're into what you're doing, it doesn't matter what level you're on. You don't have to even be in a leadership position. You will excel. You will get better raises. You'll get into a better position if you actually are just trying.
And I'll build on that too. It's passion about what you're doing, and it's also having the passion for your client or potential client, right? Caring more about them and what their needs are than selling your specific solution. When you care about them, then it follows.
I have a position in my company where I have that person where she's my main client liaison. And I've told her and I instructed her, and unfortunately she listened to me too well. Or I've told her, whenever you're basically working for the client. So and she's like my main ops person. So when I collaborate with her, when we have our meetings, we're banging heads because she's like, we need that. Even if she thinks it's a ridiculous request, she represents them. And she'll just go out there like, this is what we need. We need to do this. Remember, like 6 months ago, we fell short for them in this situation. We owe it to them, Tim. And then at the end of the like I gave her those instructions, but man, does she does, and she has the confidence. We've worked together for, I don't know, 15 years at this point. And so, that whole like respect, I mean, she respects me, but still I like to have an even playing field so that I do get true feedback. Unlike like the India case that you were saying, I hate situations where I don't know how people feel, because I feel like if you're in the trenches, you know that job better than me. And if I'm running this company, I need to know what's troubling you, what the problems are, right?
Absolutely.
And that feedback's so important.
This is an important part of coaching too. I'm glad you brought this up about this kind of peer relationship, because the coach is not above the client, like an authority above the client, and the client is not, even though they're the client and they're the customer, above the coach. It's really an equal relationship. And when you have that, that's when you can have those breakthroughs and really collaborative discussions.
Yeah. Interesting. And you guys, I mean, do coaches typically have a lot of clients? Like, for you to be able to get in touch with understanding, like, okay, I'm meeting with Tim today. I know his culture's like this. I know he's struggling. And I'm sure you have your notes and stuff to review. But I exist in the medical world where a PCP, people think that they know them really well, but they have 2,500 patients typically on average. So they're usually like reading something right before they go in, which is fine for the most part. But I imagine you have to have your coaching relationships in general have to be pretty tight, right? Like it's going to be a closer relationship than what you would have with a doctor that you see once a year.
You know what comes to mind to me, and I never thought about it this way, but you triggered it, is how many friends do you have? Just like
Zero.
roughly.
No.
Zero.
I don't know,
I mean, that was an
20.
issue about you. 20 friends. And would you, when you're having a conversation with them, would you need to review your notes about them? You know
No.
what's going on in their life? You know them. You know
Yeah.
who they are. You get to know your clients
Yeah.
that way. And
So
yeah,
that's
there
awesome.
I do take pretty good notes if there's anything specific we need to follow up. But in terms of like knowing who they are and knowing what they're dealing with,
Yeah.
it becomes part of you. Just
I
like
probably
it
should have
does-
asked this question to you earlier, but you don't come from the same type of tree, I imagine, as most coaches either. Like your background, your level of education and stuff like that, is that typical for a coach? And if not, like how does that present, how does that differ in how you approach clients maybe then?
So it's a good question. So I think there are lots of variations. There are lots of well-educated coaches out there, and there are coaches that are certified but may not have the experience and that background. And there are also coaches out there, which you got to be careful about, that just call themselves a coach.
Okay.
So there is a body called the International Coach Federation,
Yes.
which is a body for certifying coaches. And you should ask if you are thinking about hiring a coach, if the coach is familiar with and knows the ICF core competencies.
Yeah.
Because that's what real coaching is. Otherwise, you're getting into, as we talked about before, like advising or mentoring or
Sure.
or something else. So
Okay.
I think there's a wide range of experience, but once in a while, I will bring my experience to the table, again, with permission.
Yeah.
So may say, I think I have a leadership experience that may bring some light to this conversation. Would it be okay if I share that? And then it goes right back on the client. What resonated with you about that? What do you take away from that?
With this organization, is there a certificate? You said there's some kind of certification, I think is what you said, of this process. There is. So like, is there an accountability set up too? So if somebody violates the tenets of this organization, do they no longer have the rights to utilize like whatever letters are associated with this?
So one of the core competencies actually is ethical practice. And if you break away from the core competencies, first of all, you'd have to be reported to the ICF or something for that to be, so the client would have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And then, so I wouldn't say that happens very often, but the intent is that if you're either directly certified by the ICF or a body that does that, then you're following the core competencies.
Awesome. Yeah.
And in fact, I'll just share this because you have a healthcare audience, and we've built something called the Extraordinary Coach Academy, which is specifically for healthcare professionals, either providers or people that work in healthcare that want to build these ICF core competencies. We have an ICF accredited program in the Extraordinary Coach Academy. And if people are interested, they can just go to Join ECA, Extraordinary Coach Academy, joineca.com, and learn more about it.
Great.
But we've got a session coming up in November. It starts in November. And that puts you on a ACC path, Associate Certified Coach. And, they're just powerful skills. So even if you have you may have someone in the audience that is ready for a career change. Sure. Wants to learn more about coaching. It would be a great thing. Or you may have like a practice manager in one of your practices that just wants to be a better leader.
Yeah.
And the best leaders are coaches. Google figured this out years ago. So they had this project where they interviewed all of their employees and asked them to rank the top skills of the leaders that they appreciated the most. And the number one skill on that list was coaching.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's very interesting. Yeah, I was reading and doing my research for this too. Let's see how we're doing with time. Oh, we're doing pretty good with time. There was someone, and it's probably a case that you remember. I can't remember the name right now. I know he passed away earlier this year, but I think it's probably one of the most extreme, terrible examples. And that's why I ask if they strip people, if they violate it. His name was like James Arthur or something. He had done some kind of, I think he was trying to mimic some type of Native American ritual. They had all of his followers go into some steam room or something like that. And then 3 people ended up dying through this experience. Wow. And so they all believed him. He challenged them, like, you have to, bear through this, and there are too many of them in too small a space, and there was a lot of people hospitalized, but he went into prison for like 2 years. He comes out, and he just immediately, he starts a podcast, and he continues coaching. And I'm just disgusted by this. I go down all these rabbit holes when I research for my guests and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like, what's the most, what will Don like puke at hearing about, if I bring it up, like what's the worst case? And so I'm glad that there's a regulatory body that looks over, reviews things. So if people are reported, I imagine they get, whatever their credentials are removed at that point. So that's
I'm
great.
not familiar with that specific case, but
yeah, I'll send it to you afterwards.
And as part of getting certified, you actually need to submit a real coaching session to prove that you can, to demonstrate, maybe is a better word than prove, that you can, use the competencies and have a effective coaching session.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. So I know I asked this earlier, but I don't remember your answer about if folks are
probably because I made it up. But try it again.
If someone I imagine you're well suited for dentists. You're well suited, I'm sure, for lots of different folks. But like everybody else, not for everybody. If someone's looking for a coach and I know your organization actually has several coaches. I mean, you're training coaches. You're coaching coaches. So what is a good, if somebody was looking for a coach, like let's make it easy. Let's go with me. So I have organizational issues. I have things like that, focus on the prize issues type of things. Is there like when I'm okay, I want to shop for a coach now. What's the process I go down? How do I determine? I imagine I can interview them, but what would be a good process for someone to try to make sure they because that relationship obviously is very important. If you're talking about like some of these you've had for decades, then it's imperative that you make a good informed decision with this person. So what would you advise? Like if you obviously have looked for coaches before, you had a book coach before. So what would you do if you wanted to have, let's say you needed a new coach for your professional career? What would be the steps that you would take?
Yeah, so first of all, I would get some recommendations from people that and referrals for executive coaches or leadership coaches, depending on what type of coach you need. Because there are actually different specialties in coaching as well. So there are career coaches, executive and leadership coaches, which really are on leadership, business coaches. So there are some specialties there. But first, I would get 2 or 3 recommendations so you can interview them. Usually that first session, which a coach will offer complimentary, is called a chemistry check.
Okay.
To make sure, we connect, the relationship is there, and you can interview them. But really, the best coaches, and what I do, is it's a coaching session, so they're experiencing it right from the start.
Okay.
So I may ask, like, well, what experiences do you have with coaching in the past, so I can learn a little bit about where they are. Certainly, I'll ask at some point, what's your vision? Where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? What do you expect to get out of a coaching relationship? What's most important to you in the relationship with a coach? So now they can start to decide, which they probably haven't thought about all those things. Right. So they can start to define those things. So look for a coach that's going to just dive right into coaching, I would say. And then if the chemistry's there and you feel it's there and they're help you accomplish what you want, go for it.
What's the cadence on? Is it usually like a once a week for an hour type of a relationship?
Mostly I will do every other week.
Okay.
That seems to be a good cadence, but it will also adapt to what they need. So sometimes more frequency is important, sometimes less frequency, although with a monthly coaching, it's hard to get into
a rhythm. Yeah, I can see that. I can imagine that. Okay. That's fantastic. I'm not sure did we hit all the points here? We're like 5 minutes up to our time.
Yeah.
Is there something that you wanted to cover that I haven't asked you about?
This is great. Just building on that last point, I would say, hiring a coach takes an investment. It's an investment of time. It's an investment of dollars. And the most successful people and the most productive people that I've seen over the years invest in themselves first. That's the best investment you can make. We talked about investing in time and investing in just the same way you would invest dollars before, but really investing in yourself is the best investment you can make. And that's a great investment.
I think it's a good way to look at it. And I think whether it's from a I imagine too, there is, like I was saying earlier, even if I'm not talking about people with mental health issues, but I imagine that having coaching has got to be very pleasing to the mind, and it has to, really help keep you out of that vacuum of having conversations with yourself too about certain things. I think that's probably pretty healthy. One of my friends, actually, when we first met in Salis, somebody that's in the group right now, he was telling me the other day, he was like, if we, if I just get one client from you a year, Tim, he's like, that makes our relationship completely worth it.
Sure.
And I think, even if you look at it, because I'm sure some people look at, coaching being cost prohibitive. I have no idea what the rates are, but I'm sure it's not cheap. But if you look at it in the same way, like, not that you're necessarily just focused on sales and getting clients. Obviously, it's a much more complex than that. But I'm just simplifying it down that, if obviously we know that if you're being, I don't want to use the word lean, more effective with your time, it's going to lead to whatever it is you're trying to get. If it is in sales, you're going to get at least one more client per year or whatever like that. That might create whatever residual that even more than pays for the coaching. I think your mental health is far more important than even that. And I'm sure that's worth it alone. I don't know. I imagine depending on where your position is, I'm sure the companies sometimes fit the bill for these things too, but it's,
yes. If you can get your company to invest in it. I love companies that invest in coaching.
Right.
You get the ROI.
Yeah.
You're going to get the ROI.
I'm sure you do.
So I think that's a great takeaway from today, which is, and maybe you model this for your listeners and you sign up and look for a coach, and I can certainly make some recommendations for you if you want, and see what kind of difference that makes.
So I don't know, like I don't know where we're going with this whole Tim Talk thing. I know we're going to have a season 2. I have like politicians recently reaching out. I've got like different folks from areas that I haven't touched yet. So I have so many potential either healthcare or even healthcare adjacent, like because I had somebody on talking about first responders and the trouble they have with mayors hiring enough firefighters. Well, let me bring in the mayor of Fall River, who just had this huge incident happen at an assisted living facility where people died, and they were so understaffed. Like, I'd love to get different perspectives. But additionally, guests like you, I think, would also be interesting in, like, what if I just took that challenge you just threw down there, start a relationship with a coach, and then we check in 6 months from now and see how things are going. I think that would be really interesting too, because then it also shows just productivity on, through the show itself. So
I like it.
I will very much consider your challenge, sir.
Good. Excellent.
All right. Well, why don't you take us out here and, finish off season 1. And it's a pleasure having you here, sir. And thank you for welcoming me into your house.
Yeah.
Which is a very beautiful property. And that would be great if we do something in the future too.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave you with this thought, which is, and my pleasure to have you here as well. Thanks for coming in and setting up your equipment and doing this. It's been fun. We had fun, which was one of our goals. So
yes, sir.
This has been just like an easy flowing conversation. And when you talk about following up in 6 months and measuring, one of my favorite messages from a guy named Peter Drucker. Do you know who that is?
No.
He's a great management author of the 20th century and talks about really management versus leadership. And one of the things he says is what gets measured gets improved. What gets measured gets improved. And you can't manage it if you can't measure it. So when you're talking about checking in and looking back and seeing what's improved, it's a great thing. So I think anything you do in life, measure it so you can see how you're doing.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will see you probably, I don't know, you'll see in the coming weeks. I have somebody that's already made like blooper reels, some hilarious things, some good serious points too. So in between season 1 and season 2, we'll let you know the guests that we're going to be bringing into season 2. So you'll know when we're going to start. It might be 6 weeks or 8 weeks from now, but we're going to figure out how to retool, what we're going to do next time. And stay subscribed to all of our stuff, and we will see you. We'll see you soon. I don't know when exactly, but thank you.